Welcome to the Opinionation Podcast, where free speech, opinions, and original thought still matter in America.
Welcome back, everyone. It is I, your host, King Daddy, back at you once again to educate, enlighten, and inform, if possible. Let's look at a little something different today than what we normally look at. There's been a lot of talk about the new Green Deal, the environment, climate change, and I came up with a theory about these things years ago when I was in college. I don't know how much I've mentioned this before, but I do have a degree in the sciences, primarily microbiology and some other medical classes, but I took a class one time on the environment, and we had to write a paper, to make a long story short, detailing what we thought about what was wrong with the environment, what we could do to fix it, and how it got to the point of where it is. Now, this has been a long time ago, so the environment has gotten worse, according to some, than it used to be. And that is obvious. I mean, from my standpoint, even living out here in the country, there's more trash on the sides of the road. It just seems like people just don't give a shit. And there's also more houses out here than there ever used to be. I can remember coming out here in the 80s to visit the Queen when she was just the girlfriend queen. And it seemed like it took forever to get to her parents' house. And now there's so many houses and little stores and different things as you drive through the country that it only seems like it takes minutes to get here, but yet the distance and the road is the same. So things have changed. But the theory that I wrote about in this paper is one that I find very, very interesting. The emissions that come out of cars, the greenhouse effect from all the cow farts and the pig farms and all the things that we've heard so much about in the news media recently from that crazy Cortez woman. As much damage as those things potentially could do or possibly have done, my theory leans in a little different direction than that. And my theory goes back well beyond or well before even automobiles. So here's what I proposed in my paper. In the paper, I stated that, and I called this paper the Wobble Effect. And some of you who have seen some of my posts on Twitter have commented on the Wobble Effect, and I told you that I would discuss that at another time, and today is that time. And I'm going to kind of breeze through the Wobble Effect a little bit and give you a synopsis of how I feel. Welcome you to chime in at opinionation84@gmail.com and tell me what you think. But here's what I came up with when I wrote that paper. When the earth was new and everything was in perfect homeostasis around us, everything was exactly where it is supposed to be, or where it was supposed to be. The rocks were where they were supposed to be. The mountains were where they were supposed to be. And everything that sat on the face of this planet was counterbalanced. So here we come along as human beings, and we have taken the earth and we have started shifting dirt, building buildings, cutting roads through mountains, and doing all the things that we have done to industrialize the world. Have we somehow thrown the earth off balance? So, in order to prove the point that I made when I wrote this paper, we had to have a lab project to go with it. I don't know how many of you remember just a top. You know, you spin the top on the top of the table and it spins around until it finally slows down and falls over. So I took the top and I took just a tiny, tiny dab of hot glue and a piece of rice. And I took that piece of rice and I glued it onto one spot on the top. And I spun the top around, But instead of the top spinning like it was supposed to, it wobbled off the table and fell on the floor. Because I had thrown off the balance of the top by just adding a tiny grain of rice, uncooked grain of rice, to the top of the top, and caused it to be off balance, spin out of control, and fall off the table. So if you can imagine the earth, if you can imagine thousands or millions, ever how many years you want to imagine, of the earth with all the building projects and the shifting of steel and shifting of metal and shifting of ore and all the things that are done to industrialize the world in the way that it has become, we have taken things that are supposed to be somewhere else, and we have moved them to where they're not supposed to be, and we have thrown off the balance of the planet. Now, of course, the planet is not wobbling off its axis. It's not falling over. But just think, the planet minutely shifted or wobbles just enough to where we can't feel it and we can't really tell. But all of a sudden, we have temperatures rising, glaciers melting. The environment is completely out of control, all because we have damaged the homeostasis of the way the earth was supposed to be. You make changes anywhere, and there's always going to be a reactionary something that takes place to any change that you make. I don't care what you change, something will inevitably be reaction from it. So what we have done, in my opinion, is we have taken the earth and we have disemboweled it, moved things around, and created an environmental clusterfuck that we can't fix. Now, let me give you a small example of what I'm saying. About a mile from my house or less, I have a landfill. I go there once a week and I take a bag of trash and some recycling. Well, this landfill is full. You can pull into the driveway of the landfill and you can look off across the landscape and you can just see mounds of moved earth and trash everywhere. There's also another landfill over by the Charlotte Motor Speedway that is also just full. You can ride down Highway 29 in Charlotte and you can look over at this landfill and you can see all these mounds of trash. So when I pull into the landfill to go give them my money to dump my trash, it weighs my car and its contents. So on a typical day, unless I have more trash than normal, my little car with me in it and my trash weighs approximately 2,660 pounds. Now, if you look at my car, 2,260 pounds is not much. But if you consider the fact that most of our world's steel comes from China, and in 2010 they produced 626.7 million metric tons of steel from China, 109.6 million metric tons of steel from Japan. It is just unreal at the amount of weight that they have moved around and shifted from one place to another. And I mean, it is an obvious scientific fact that if you move the properties of things around a certain object, it is going to displace everything around it, and it is going to cause a weakness or a balance issue, which is what I believe that we have done to this earth. We have created a balance issue of such mass proportion, because if my little car weighs 2,660 pounds. Imagine a full-size, say, F-150 pickup truck or a train or a city bus. And the steel that it took to make those vehicles, the steel that it takes to make the beams that are inside of a high-rise building, and you got that steel from somewhere else besides the actual ground where it sits, and you have displaced millions and millions, if not billions and billions of tons of earth and material from one place where it belonged to another place where it does not belong. So my consensus that came about in my experiment with the top and the paper that I wrote was that the environment has been fucked up for so long and has been wobbling for so long that I don't believe it can be fixed. I think that we have done irreparable damage to the planet that we live on, and not all of it has to do with our emissions and our pollution and our greenhouse gas effect. We have destroyed the planet simply by displacing everything that we have displaced to build the things that we feel like we need to build to survive. Now, the Industrial Revolution, I realize that it's an important part of history. That everybody thought that they needed all these things in order to survive. But realistically speaking, everything that we needed to survive was already here. Everything that we needed in order to maintain the species and live on and procreate was already here. Those things were the ideas of man that they wanted to do to make the changes that they made, because they felt like that's what they needed to do in order to perpetuate their race. And I believe they were mistaken. But there's also a part of me that is glad that those things done. I like my life. I somewhat like the world that I live in, but as I get older and as I realize the importance of the things that are here, the trees and the mountains and the oceans and the sky, those things are so much more important to our mental well-being and our emotional well-being than any statue or building or car or bus or anything that we have built ourselves. The earth was, I don't like to use this word, but I will, created in a perfect fashion, exactly like it was. There was nothing wrong with it. Everything was beautiful. Back in the day, everything was beautiful. But what did man do? They decided that they wanted to jump in their wagons and they wanted to go start digging gold in California, building towns, entertaining themselves, making monuments to mankind to glorify themselves, and in the process, they have destroyed this beautiful earth that we all live on. And I don't see that it's very difficult for anybody to understand the virtual concept of what I'm saying here, because my theory may not hold an exact scientific name, or it may not hold an exact scientific proof, but I guarantee you that it is true to a major degree, because there is no way, again, scientifically speaking, that you can change the homeostasis of something perfect without causing imperfection. We have done that. So now you have, as an example of my vehicle, 2,660 pound vehicles and then some, traveling up and down highways made of steel and concrete and asphalt that weigh more than the ground weighed that used to sit there where they sit now. We've dug up the ground and replaced it with something denser and heavier than what was there before. And we have taken this earth and we have adjusted the balance just enough to where we are scorching our layers of ozone. We are melting our glaciers. We are destroying the planet. And then if you take the pollution that is created from these things and add it on to what I'm telling you, we have literally, on purpose, destroyed the world in which we live in. People would rather live in a city filled with high-rise buildings and thousands of people and traffic than they would to live in a house where they could look out their window and see some beautiful trees and some beautiful sky. We have destroyed the ecosystem one building at a time. We have destroyed everything that we love about this earth. And we have taken it away and replaced it with things that can't be loved, things that can't be enjoyed, not like they should be. There are people out there now who love the city more than they do anything else. But what they don't understand is their city is destroying the ecosystem of the world we live in. That's the problem with the environment. That is where our problem lies when it comes to what we need to do to fix this problem. And the answer is there's nothing we can do now. The only way to fix this, and I brought this up in the paper as well, is if we could figure out the exact location of where every piece of steel or steel ore came from and figure out a way to replace it exactly where it came from. And there is no way that can be done. It is an impossible task. We have made a mockery of this earth. The ancestors that were here before us, who were living on the land and enjoying the bounty of what this world had to give, if they could only be here to see what we have done, they would be ashamed. You know, I look out at all the things that we have in this earth, and I want to be thankful for them. I want to be thankful for the technology. I want to be thankful for the car that I ride in. I want to be thankful for the house that I live in. But when I think about the cost of what these things have brought to this earth, I have a hard time being thankful. You know, I'm thankful that I'm alive, and I am thankful that I have been given more than some, less than others, more than some. But from the perspective of the cost to have these things, it almost makes tears want to well up in your eyes, because we have destroyed the greatest gift the universe has ever given us, and that is our world. This is King Daddy. Thank you again for listening, and everybody have a wonderful afternoon.